adoption of the oath of inventory. Diane?
So I will bring that forward probably at the May 19th meeting that's due to Leo by the end of May. So it's our 2019. It's for the equipment that has a purchase value of $5,000 or more.
we have two Franks. We have Bill Frank there.
That's pretty cute.
Oh,
Oh, we
now,
lost
now
Frank.
0 Franks.
You should be on the phone though. You
He's
still on the
coming
phone?
back in.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So the next thing is the RFP for courthouse weapons screening, Frank?
So, I got that. So, in French, the RFP for the weapons screening for campus security for Madison County courts and the downtown county buildings. The old weapons screening contract ends October 31st, 2020, so we need to go be ready and get for another one. The budget impacts is currently in the current expense, and I'm just looking to move forward with this and get moving on so we don't have to wait on it.
Kelly, does this include an add-on for building 10 eventually, or are we leaving that off?
This does not, but it will add on for building 10.
The language is in there though, Kelly.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I didn't see that, so.
So the next thing is the food lending library. So I'm in college in a leadership class, and we've been talking a lot about what our communities need in this COVID-19. And one thing I identified was that the food banks are completely exhausting their resources. And so I took the lending library, where they have the book lending libraries, and I came up with a plan to put food in there. Here at the corner, in front of Building 9, we have a lot of lower income people that travel back and forth, people visiting our courthouse. A lot of people walk down towards Safeway, and so I thought it would be a great location to serve our community. And so then I deployed my team, and Diane and her family helped build it. Kelly is going to help mount it out there, secure it in a location that's safe for people and not having to truck their grass and stuff. And then I'm going to stock it, and I'm gonna make a sign that says on the outside, take what you want, leave what you can, so other people can add to it. And so I'm gonna stock it as soon as it's up there. And so that's the lending library. It's a gift back to the public.
And it's squirrel proof?
Right, yes, it's going to have a plexiglass piece in there so that the squirrels can't
That's
get in.
I think it's great,
Yeah.
yeah. Good job.
Let us know, we'll contribute.
Okay, thank you.
Non-perishables, right?
Yes, non-perishables, completely. I'll send out an email once it's all up with some pictures to all county staff and invite them to help stock it,
Yeah.
or also to take it if they need.
Mhm.
We don't know what other,
True.
people need, so, yep.
Excellent.
So the next thing, Frank, is the Mason County Parks and Boat launches, and Ross is not here.
Ross isn't there? Okay, that's no problem. So under the most current order from the governor has opened up the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife and has allowed for parks to open as well as boat ramps. So the question is, does the board want to allow Mason County boat ramps to be opened and parks opened, but without the concessions or and maintaining social distancing within the park environment?
Right,
Yes.
Yeah.
yep, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll move forward with that then.
And they would reopen tomorrow with everything else? Is that the plan?
Yes.
Okay.
And will there be signs up stating that so I don't think that the facilities will be open, so you can't use the restroom or anything like that. There's also no team sports.
Right, there's no team sports, so there will not be any baseball or any of that. The concession stands will not be open. The facilities will not be open. There will be signs up saying that they are not open to the public based on the proclamation by the governor.
What about the toys?
No, the toys will be wrapped, they'll have tape.
Very good.
Yes, they'll be wrapped with
Talking to,
either tape or yellow wrapper.
Okay.
Although it don't last long.
So the next item then is the MCRA irrigation. This is the request for proposal. So RCO has granted us funds to do the MCRA irrigation proposal. The question is, does the board still want to proceed with the irrigation project? We cannot postpone it in another year because we've already had this for 2 years. And RCO won't allow us to extend it to a third year. The project was budgeted for about $325,000. And if we're going to do it this year, then we need to go out for an RFP for a contractor to perform that work.
I think we need to still go out, this is already in our budget, it's monies that we already had, we're not basing anything on any future revenue coming in for this, if I'm correct.
That's correct.
I don't really wanna lose the grant either.
Because we will lose it.
Right,
Yeah.
good,
Right.
okay. Good to go.
Okay. The next is another RFP. So under the microenterprise loan program through the Cdbg, there are two components of that. One we voted on last week to allow for the $90,000 to be used for COVID-related business assistance within Mason County. The other piece of the contract is to educate individuals in low-income the sector of our community on how to run a business, how to set up a business, how to develop a business plan. In order to do that, the grant requires that we hire individuals to provide outreach and technical support for the method of putting that training session together. So this is a $20,000 RFP. Last time we had this program, it was Washington State University and the EDC that participated in this portion of this program.
So this is a $20,000?
Correct.
And
And the previous time that was split between Washington State, Washington State Extension and the EDC.
and it's part of the requirement, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's part of the scope of the work for that project.
Just wondering to myself, how they do it, but they could still, if they had to do it through webinars and stuff until it can break loose. At least they can start.
Good.
And they would do it by webinar, obviously needing to follow the guidelines of the CDC and the governor's protocols.
We're all
Okay,
good.
we're good.
Okay? So the next item then is a grant writer RFQ. This is a request for qualifications of a grant writer. To assist the county in researching and acquiring and writing for grants that might be available. So the question is, do we go forward?
I was gonna say, I didn't know if you were stuck or not on that.
No, the question is, do we go forward with the RFQ?
I'm very supportive of moving forward, so we can start to see what opportunities that we are missing out there. We're not gonna do it, if we don't have lines in the water, we can't catch any fish on this one. Did you get a chance to look at the treasury yet?
Yes, I did, and I couldn't find anything yet
Okay.
that would be available to us, but that's an extensive search, and I haven't finished it.
No, I understand. And we just talked about it the other day, so I didn't expect that you'd have it.
But I did do some research and looking for it, and found a number of areas that I've got to dig into.
Yeah. My hope is that that 2.3 trillion that the Treasury, not the government, put out for local and state governments for loans may be something we can get the loans and buy down some of our debt at a lower interest rate. I don't want it for anything else, you know, I hate to take on more debt right now, that's definitely not, but it sure be nice to take on debt that can pay down debt and get it for 0.25% or 0.5% compared to 3%.
And that is correct. The range that the Treasury is offering loans at is between 1/4 and 1/2%.
So I'm in favor of moving forward with this as soon as we can possibly get started.
Tomorrow's agenda, because it's not on there,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, I'm in favor of putting it on tomorrow's agenda. And she's not throwing rocks, so I think she meant that's what she was telling us to do.
That's the way I take it.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Although I'm
idea.
over here, so I mean,
I can still read.
safer.
Yeah, she's got that shoe thing, she gets it.
Go gadget on.
Boomerang.
Fire.
Yeah.
So put it on for tomorrow's briefing?
Sounds good?
Agenda?
Agenda.
Yeah.
And just so the goal of this is to have whomever the successful applicant is work directly with the departments on grants that they are willing to implement in their department.
That is correct. The Sheriff's Office has 1 or 2 at this stage that they might be looking to pursue.
And I'm hoping they're gonna find a lot more, but they'll still have to get the buy-in from the departments.
Correct.
Makes no sense to go for money that we don't take advantage of.
Right.
Okay, and so the next item is the letter regarding the 2020 budget recommendations. I hope I've captured all of the recommendation or language modifications that everybody was hoping to include. The question is, can we go with the document as it is and send it out to the departments and the electeds?
I like it,
I'm getting there.
looking at it. Give us a minute, Frank.
Sure, take your time.
I'm fine. I think. Sorry, I was.
So we're okay with it?
Yeah.
Yep.
We will send it out later, probably tomorrow morning. The next item is the development or the approval to go ahead with a board. Last time we authorized a major disaster leave sharing policy, and within that policy was a definition of a board that would define or decide who would receive the accrued leave that was donated. So our recommendation here is that that board consists of the chair of the Board of County Commissioners or a commissioner, the budget manager, and the chief deputy prosecuting attorney who has agreed to participate.
Yeah. Good. Sounds
Do we
good.
want to define the commissioner as the chair?
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure, they're good with that.
okay. then we'll move forward with that.
I'll put that on tomorrow's agenda too, in case it should come up between now and the 19th.
That's good.
Okay. And then Frank, I'm assuming you've checked with the Chief Deputy Prosecuting Attorney, he's good with this?
Yes, he is,
Okay.
And the budget manager?
and the budget manager.
Who probably has the least
The
say.
next item
Keep
is
saying
the
no.
tax title, putting 6 parcels on tax title, at our tax title, on the for sale with Richard Beckman, and he has put forward some recommended asking prices for these parcels, or list prices. Do we want to go forward, continue, and put them on as, to include the list price that he recommended?
Yeah, I think a couple of them are low in my opinion, but you know what, we'll find out, huh? You know, if it doesn't sell quickly, then we'll know. He uses a different dynamic than I would. You don't look at an acre and say it's a half an acre, it's worth half as much, it just doesn't usually work that way, but I don't know, whether these properties have water issues. You know, there's a lot of other things without going out to it, so. If it went for taxes, it probably does have something, so that's why I'm good with those numbers.
Okay, then we'll move forward with those. And the last item is just an update to the board. If the board recalls, a few weeks ago, under the CARES Act, there were grants that were offered to states to offer, as well as to counties, for assistance in COVID-19 responses. But the counties were required to be 500,000 in population or greater. And what Washington State did was, the state accepted those, for those counties where the population was less than 500,000 as a group, and then allocated dollars to those counties based on their respective populations within that group. So the proposal identified about $3.8 million available to Mason County. And what the state had done was put forward a coronavirus relief fund. And there was a document created that identified what those funds can be used for. This is a work in progress, so we don't know exactly how all of these pieces are coming together. But I wanted to make the board aware of the fact that there's a $3.8 million earmarked for Mason County to be available. We don't know if there's a check coming to Mason County and where we have to prove we used it for all of the funds that are, or for all of the eligible expenses, or, and my suspicion is that's going to be a reimbursement where we would need to show that we spent the money and then we would get dollars back in recovery. Two things very specific are that these funds cannot be used for shortfalls in government revenues. It must be spent on items that were incurred as a result of COVID-19 and the response by the county for COVID-19. So what I did was attach a document that identified some of the major categories of what we might be able to recover costs for. Have touched base with Dave Windom in public health to see what he's already recovering under the $505,000 grant that he received for public health assistance, as well as the Sheriff's Office for what might be additional assistance and costs that they're incurring. WASAC had a telephone conference last week and plans to have another one this week as well to go over the many questions of how this is going to be rolled out. I just wanted the board aware of the fact that there's money that might be coming The suspicion is it'll be run by the Department of Commerce, but again, that's not defined yet either. Again, the suspicion is that it'll be reimbursable grants where we'll have to prove that the monies were spent. But this is just a laundry list of what might be available and where we might be able to recover some dollars out of this CARES Act grant submission.
My hope is that we utilize that other person we've been talking about to look into some of this stuff as well. One example might be the money that we just sent over for $50,000 to do certain things in that will take some of the food banks and stuff. Some money will go to some of the senior centers. Those monies, according to this, may be reimbursable back to us. It's just finding every one of those little tiny pieces, collecting nickels to make dimes and dimes to make dollars, can really add up.
Yeah, there's a myriad of programs that might be recoverable, including preparation for Building 10, even unemployment insurance, should we have to go to furloughs and layoffs and things of that nature. Payroll-related items that are specific to COVID issues. So there are a number of things that may be coming back to the county to recover some of our costs.
I wonder if we can think ahead on this too when we have this opportunity. For example, I'm seeing here we're being able to provide for telecommunications in certain areas. You have the PUD that's going out and they're putting out these nodules where you can go and get Wi-Fi. It may be that we can do it after the fact and still expand some of our services and get some of this money if it's still out there and available.
That's correct. And one of the items is in telecommuting or teleworking, where it would allow for the purchase of IT infrastructure to do that.
We also need to look at providing some of those laptops that we've been talking about getting real quick to those that are still out there in the field and getting new laptops and bringing that money in as well.
Exactly. So I just wanted to give the board a heads up on what's out there. As more and more of this becomes more concrete or more definitive, I will let the board know. In any regard, we will be working towards keeping track of all of those costs that might be recoverable so that when the day comes, we can put a request together and ask for refunds or reimbursements.
Yeah.
Hey, under item number 5, take a look at that later. That grant writer may be reimbursable.
That's correct. And we might be able to add additional assistance programs for businesses
Yeah.
as part of this.
It might be worthwhile to look into. Pierce County is doing small business loans. And I don't know if, I mean, they're calling them loans, but I'm not sure if they're more like grants. I know we've had some issues in the past with kind of how we set up and monitor things designated as loans through CBDG.
That one.
CDBG.
Um,
You remember Buck Rogers, that little metal guy, whatever he used to.
What the federal government is referring to there or using are forgivable loans.
Right, but I think so. But Pierce County developed a program where they're loaning out money, and I don't know that it's necessarily related to this. But if we could use this for a similar program, there might be a blueprint there on modeling so that we don't run into some of the issues that we have in the past. So
Copy and paste. All for it.
yeah, so the commission's good with it. I would like to have us look into what it would take to kind of establish a similar program. And I think they have criteria based on how many employees, and there's an application process. And I think the grants top out at $20,000, $10,000 or $20,000, either way. But I think it might be worthwhile looking into to confirm that, one, we can use this for that, and two, that what they're doing there can be easily translated to what we would want to do here.
Yeah, I will take a look into what they have and whether it can fit into something that we can develop on our own. That's all that we have.
I do have one more thing. I wanted to ask if we could keep the second quarter budget supplementals and amendments on the record. I'll have a more inclusive list for you at the next briefing, but so far I do have the grant that Community Support Services received for $505,000, and then the $50,000 for United Way, that contract that we just put in through Community Support Services. We have the Cdbg, $127,000 additional grant money. We have the Historical Preservation Fund, moving that into the general fund, and a couple other odds and ends. The Auditor's O&M fund needs risk pool insurance of $3,000, and then the scope flood zone needs a budget amendment of approximately $55,000, maybe more. So anyway, just those couple of items for the next budget amendment. So.
Well, and you understand our parameters better than anybody, so if you're saying we should do it, I'm supportive.
Okay, great, thank you.
Anything else?
I think,
Did we want to talk about changing the pandemic,
Oh, yeah.
other policy.
the policy, Diane, where,
It's on tomorrow's agenda. We're changing the pandemic response policy. I sanitized it down so it's more of a universal policy and extracted the closure pay and the administrative pay, because effective May 5th, the commissioners, as I understand, are no longer allowing that. So it's the policy, it's in there if the board chose to, like if we had another event. And what came up during this process was essential employees. And in talking to legal, the commissioners can declare all county employees essential. And they referred to a Summit Law, I think, interpretation.
Yes.
And the governor's.
it's actually the governor's appendix where Tim Whitehead actually cited that as governmental employees are essential. And
So
that's his
Take out the
interpretation.
question of that. It's our recommendation in the policy. We can say the commissioners can declare. And then in the resolution, I would just add a, in the now therefore, all county commissioners, yeah, you're essential. Yeah, all employees are essential. And what that would mean is there's still, people can telework, and if, they have a qualifying reason to not come in and work, they have leave. There's also an assortment of leaves, through federal and state, but also
And
their
they're
own
shared.
accrued leave. Yeah, and then we have this leave share plan now that the board's established.
Well, and Frank, what about the idea of a permitted furlough? Is that still in there somewhere?
Yep, that's allowable under the
Okay.
law.
And the reason why is those that still can't, it would allow them to collect unemployment if they choose not to take their
Right.
leave or
Or
anything
they've
else.
exhausted it.
Yeah.
Well, our policies say they have to exhaust their leaves first.
That
But
they-
if they do exhaust their leave, we could furlough them so that they would be eligible for unemployment. The other side of that is that they may have children at home, which would then allow them to take Washington paid family medical leave
Yeah.
instead of unemployment if they chose that route too.
And they can
There's
take
a whole bunch of
PHEL
different ways.
before the state. And actually, the furlough is allowed in the at-risk group, which is right now protected till June 12th by the governor's
Yeah.
order. And in that, they can ask for a furlough, because we can't say in which order they take their leave. So there
Yeah.
are different
And-
things we have to follow.
And I thought I didn't want to force them to take leave if they could go out now.
Absolutely, and that's their choice on that part.
Okay, as long
I
as it's
think
their
on the
choice.
The
Yeah.
leave without pay is, and using your accrued leave is if you have no, if you don't meet any of the conditions.
Yeah, and I mean in order to get furloughed, so they can apply for unemployment.
There's only, I think it's only the at-risk that has that protection.
Yeah, so certain people, so if somebody who's a healthy 30-year-old, no children at home, nobody that they're taking care of, and they're just, have high anxiety because of COVID-19, they would need to use their leave first and then get furloughed.
But if they have
Because they
somebody
don't
at
meet
home
any of the other
or any of the other
laws.
risks.
Or
Then they
children.
would meet
Or
a
children.
myriad of different laws.
What kind of documentation would an employee need to provide to meet those qualifications?
So I sent out an email to everybody last week that actually outlined it and asked them to fill out a form, which, what are they taking it for, what are they saying they're qualified for, and then we would need, so like, if it's a child at home, we need their name, and I went right off the law, their name, their age, what school they attend or what childcare they attend, and then have them sign that they're not available. The childcare may not be available, open to them right now. So, and then medical leave would be, they have to have a letter. And I reached out to my own doctor just to ask my own doctor, would she provide that? With my medical condition, she said, yep, just let me know if you need it. So doctors are now doing it, a lot of them are doing it via email, telehealthing, so.
I just think, just so the public is aware that there is, you know, documentation that the law
Yes.
requires and that,
Yes.
that we're monitoring that, and that it's not just a, hey, this is what I'm doing, without some checks and balances.
There are checks and balances, and I provided each employee with an email form that they can fill out and submit back to HR, and that will go through to payroll with their timesheets.
And if I'm correct, that form identifies what supplemental documentation is required and requests that it be submitted with the form.
Yes.
Anything else? Anything else?
I think that
There's
covers it.
just commissioner discussion about open to the public. Schedule an elected official director meeting at May 11th briefing.
Right. Right, so do we wanna, my thought was we get all the electeds and the department heads together so that we know what's going on. You know, the steps forward. That make sense?
Yeah,
And-
I understand.
And to see what their plans are too.
Can we just solicit that by email? Do we all need to be in the same room?
We could use building 10, I could separate us big time in building 10.
Well, we can also just use the public works building too, that'd be enough to separate. But the question becomes though,
You
Yeah.
can't meet at the public works building, you're at the county seat.
huh?
You can't have a quorum of the commissioners meet at the county,
Yeah, Public Works.
you have to be in the county seat.
No, to
We're
take
taking
action, but we're not taking action, we can meet outside the county seat.
For briefing, action, I mean, this is action today, discussing,
No, but-
deliberating.
But to meet with those elected officials is not an action, if, just like us
It's
having
not
our.
final action, but it's action.
No, but us having, just like us having meetings at, in Belfair or anything else, all, that's the same, and we do have the law now that does allow us to have
With a
meetings outside of our
30-day
public,
notice.
with a 30-day notice, yeah.
Right.
So, all three of them were covered there, but the question that I still have is, at this point, we're still supposed to be keeping at, you know, 5 or less,
Yes.
when we get to the next phase, actually. So, I guess the question that you had is it necessary?
Yeah, because I think, in looking at what the governor has put forward, even if we make it to phase 2, I'm not clear on whether or not that would trigger reopening everything to the public.
I think that's in phase 3.
I think it is
So-
good for this.
So,
It says
I
that.
mean, we're gonna talk about
Government.
our variance application here in a little bit, but, I just don't foresee us reopening to the public in anything less than 3 weeks. Well, I mean, 6 weeks, or, right? I mean, it would potentially,
June
right?
16th, yes.
Well, and I expect we will be open to the public in certain things such as the
Right.
building department and stuff,
Building
because those
permits.
things are opening.
Mhm.
But the question I still have is, do we need to come together, because they're actually making it happen? I don't mind coming together, you know that, so, but I'm just, I understand what he's saying, but my question is, if it's not necessary, can it be done in a different manner?
We have a Zoom account that I've purchased for the license, and I could arrange a Zoom meeting with all of you electeds and department heads if you wish to hold it that way.
We can put out the phone number or whatever so that people can.
I'll send
view-
them an email. and they
No,
have
to
a
the
link.
public, but they
Oh, yeah.
can't have conversation or be open.
It would have to Yeah, we would have to live stream the Zoom meeting, so we meet the OPMA.
Done it before, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done it, and if it was part of next Monday's briefing, if that's what the board wants to do.
What is the purpose of doing it so soon?
As I said, it might be a little premature
I think
now,
you're the
knowing
one
the
that wants to
governor's
do it,
order.
right?
Well, I think it's important that we all know what other departments are doing. The courts, you know, what are they doing? We've also had issues with other offices changing their hours and not letting us know here. So I think it's just good that we communicate with everybody so that we are all on the same page. So we look, at least like we're functioning as a team.
Yeah. Do you feel that we need to be in the same room to do it?
Oh, no, no,
So you're okay with doing it as a Zoom?
oh, yeah.
Okay, I'll schedule that.
Yeah.
So for next Monday as part of the briefing?
Are we having a briefing next Monday?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
The next meeting though won't be till May 19th.
Yeah.
So for this then, Dawn would invite all the directors and electeds to Zoom in and explain kind of where they're at in
Yeah.
their office hours, what
Right.
services they're providing, okay.
And it would be good to know what the courts are doing, I think.
So we'll invite all the electeds, including judges,
Yeah,
okay.
thank you. Anything else?
I thought you had two.
No, that was
Sessions.
just, does the
Oh,
county
that
wanna
was just a
open
long
and
one,
then
okay.
schedule? Yeah. Okay, I think we're done.
Okay,
Thank you, commissioners. Thanks, everybody.
thanks, Frank, good seeing your face.
Yes, good seeing everybody. Thanks, bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, shall we move on to community development?
Okay. Good morning.
Okay, so we're moving into our community services briefing. We'll go around the room for introductions.
Kevin Toomey?
Alex.
Hey, Dave Gardner, Mason County Public Health.
Oh, hey, Abe.
Colin Stacy.
Kel Rowan.
Ross McDowell.
Brian Sperling.
Casey Bingham.
Todd Parker.
Dave McCown. Dave Windom.
Randy Neville.
Don Twitty.
And Sharon Trask.
Okay, we're gonna start off with Todd.
Brian Fraser.
There we go.
All right, I guess the first one would be an amendment with Community Lifeline. So just to give a quick background, their overnight shelter would normally be closed at this point. So the special use permit by the city goes from now October 1st through April 30th. And so just through this, the COVID-19, using the emergency housing response grant, and unsheltered folks being highly prioritized, as well as kind of a stay-at-home order still in effect, that we were asking to extend the overnight shelter through the end of May. And so that would be an additional about $18,000 for that purpose, just for some additional staffing needs to keep it open.
And the city did say, the city's extended theirs?
Yes, and the city is in favor of extending the use permit during the emergency.
I'm supportive. I'd like to ask though, that you put together a document showing me what monies are being spent up in North Mason with any of these things that are coming in, please, for the future.
Good with me.
Good.
And then is there any chance that can be on the action agenda for tomorrow? So the next one's not until the 19th.
Well, I don't know if she didn't throw anything yet, so.
Why not?
Oh man, it's a good day. Did you hear that?
Don't push it.
All right.
It was
then,
Kevin that said that, it wasn't me.
And then the next item, or Abe and I are here on behalf of Lydia on the treatment sales tax. So again, just to set the stage, the money goes, as you're well aware, to the therapeutic courts. And then we had to the community, we had Northwest Resources, Consejo, Behavioral Health Resources, and Peninsula Community Health Services. And so part of their recommendation going forward is to continue to extend the contracts for 1 year with Northwest Resources and also Consejo, as they've, do open up in have opened up in the North Mason area, but not to renew Peninsula. That was just originally was just a launch, and they said that they're able to sustain now. And then with Behavioral Health Resources, I think it's just a little bit of on the financial side, how much money might be there next year, and we want to put some more money into the jail services. So I'll kind of prioritize a few things, and then I'll have kind of Abe help fill in some gaps. And so with the so the priority with the money would be in the jail, and a little too with is in the transition from the BHOs to the MCOs, like Behavioral Health Organization was able to kind of package some of the services. But now, since some of the money has transitioned to there, and then the ASOs, a lot of acronyms there, but we're looking at putting more of a peer in the jail to provide a little, round out the services that are being provided by a mental health professional. And so that would be an additional service, and then the $150,000 that has been allowed into the jail for some of the medical, the ARNP. We recommend continuing that for 1 year, but then to reevaluate really the jail as a whole package. And then, as I said, just extending Northwest Resources and Consejo for the 1 year. Any other details on that?
Yeah. So in terms of the jail position, I believe Jim Madsen had made a request or had indicated that there was a gap in services when BHO money went away for some assessments and for some mental health support. Working with Olympic Health and Recovery Services, or ORS, who provides the mental health provider in the jail, they have indicated that they would be able to provide that same service for the Juvenile Detention Center, utilizing the same position, so maximizing those dollars, and the work that she's needed to do for reentry, coordination of services, and kind of the things that aren't necessarily needed for a mental health provider can be taken care of by this peer position. This peer position would continue the medication-assisted therapy program that we've started the last several months, as well as do reentry as a whole for individuals. And again, this would be a position that would be partnered with Olympic Health and Recovery, because they have monies to do a True Blood program. So the TST dollars wouldn't be going towards a full position. We would be putting half the money towards it, and Olympic Health and Recovery would put the other half towards that position. So be able, again, maximize positions, maximize dollars, and maximize space, because there's such limited space there at the jail. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I think this is a good re-rack of the programming and the funding. So, nice job, guys.
Yeah, my questions will come after I start seeing some other numbers, but I'll talk to you about that later. This has all come to a head again, and it's time for me to have some discussions financially.
To this
Expenditures where they're at in the county.
Okay.
details Consejo's ask,
Thank you.
and what the services they provide.
Probably for Diane.
So that's Consejo's information.
Well, we have him here. Abe, can you talk a little bit about where we're at with LEAD and how that's?
Great question. So yeah, so prior to the virus outbreak and subsequent response, we were on the verge of getting started with our law enforcement assisted diversion program that we found out we were going to be awarded a contract through the healthcare authority for the full amount that we requested. Healthcare Authority obviously has had their hands full with the response. So been in coordination and communication with them. Currently, we're awaiting a contract, but it should be hopefully happening anytime. But they continue to just ask for our patience and understanding as it's taken them a little while to get that going. We did find out originally when we applied for the money, it was going to be through 2 funding streams. Well, ultimately, it started with one, Healthcare Authority, but they had been contracting with the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, WASPIC, to make it easier and to just, so that we didn't have to report to 2 funding streams or two entities. They decided that we would just contract directly with Healthcare Authority to make it easier and streamline it. So as of right now, that's kind of where we're at, what we're waiting for. I know that our community partners are ready and waiting to get going as soon as we have the money and the contract. Our partner in that project is Olympic Health and Recovery Services as well, or ORS. They've already put together job descriptions and are ready to go as far as the direct services. So we're kind of just waiting right now, but everyone's ready and we're ready to go to get it up and going.
Yeah, we approved those positions at the PHA ASO meeting last month. No indication that the money is going to be swept.
No indication. I think those are earmarked specifically, and so there's no indication that the WASPIC projects have been going forward. It's the HCA ones that have kind of, been halted a little bit or slowed down. But I just had communication as recently as last week, and it's still on the table as far as.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Okay, Kel.
Hello. I have a few things. What order do you guys have?
So,
The grants
Burke.
first?
Burke.
Burke? So we did select Burke Consulting to do the plan action EIS and Belfair, and they gotten us a contract back. I've had legal look at it and gave their thumbs up. Loretta's team, I did not get comments back from Loretta, but assume that that's okay. And then I could put on an action agenda to accept the contract for next week, if that's okay. Or
May 19th.
May 19th?
Oh, prefer May 19th, okay, yep.
What'll we
Well,
next week?
do we have to wait?
My only caution is I want to make sure that we hear from Loretta, so maybe if we, she's coming in after this, so maybe we can just follow up in person and that would be sufficient versus waiting until the
So if she's
19th.
okay, be prepared to put it on tomorrow.
For tomorrow, okay, sure.
Is that?
I'm good with that, yeah.
I'm just
No,
curious.
if
They're gonna be a big
if
component.
she's got an issue, I don't wanna do it either, I wanna stop and figure out, so I'm
Agree, yeah,
Yeah,
I would like to have confirmation from Loretta.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we'll see if we can get you that.
Okay,
Okay, next item is local records grant.
okay, Mariah?
So we put in a grant application for the State Archives Local Records Grant for organizing the file room. We have been working with them for probably about a year on figuring out what exactly would be the best thing for us to do. So we've been in contact with them. They helped us fill it out as well, so we have the best chance possible. It will be awarded, or awards will be put out on July 1st, so hopefully we get it. And if we do, it would be for, to bring in part-time staff to cover current staff's duties, so they don't have to be trained in core or retention or anything like that. Seasoned staff, most likely me, will already be doing that part of it, but they would cover my duties in order for me to free up that time to do it.
Any questions?
Yeah,
I think it's great.
May 19th.
yeah, that works for me.
Okay.
So yeah, so we'll find out in July if we get awarded, and if so, we'll bring it back again to say
Okay.
we've been awarded, and then if we want to accept.
So we'll just wait until you guys.
Yeah, we just
final.
wanted to give you a heads up that we went ahead and submitted prior to getting the permission just because of the deadline and COVID chaos, and I just want to thank Mariah for the hard work that she did, and I was completely hands-off, so when Kathy and I read it, and went through. We were really impressed with how she really thought out about how it would actually work, what you really need to do, and didn't leave out any details. So we feel pretty confident that that the grant award would allow us to have maintain staffing and get the job fully done. So really appreciate that.
Good job.
Okay, next is Kel again. Updated community development functions and operations.
Yes, so I really wanted to be able to share with you, the commission and the community, what Department of Community Development has been up to since March 23rd. We did shut our doors to the public, and we did end up turning off our extension 352 so we could allow everyone to telework from home, and then come into the office as necessary. So every single staff has been teleworking and working on our backlog. So the photos I included in there show that we had lots of permits in a review backlog. So not only did we have submittals that came in that were still in the queue to just be distributed to environmental health, building, and planning, but also those permits that had been distributed were just sitting in a backlog waiting for the review. So we took the opportunity with this closure to start to really just put the halt on new submittals, although we have been continuing to accept new submittals online, but new full like building permit submittals we have not accepted until tomorrow. So we've worked through that backlog. We have gone through, I think it was, as of this morning, 142 reviews that have been completed. We have issued 91 permits since then. So even though we're close to the public, we've had the public, or those permit applicants that have an issued permit been able to come in, pay the remainder, pick up their permit, and go. That was 91. We still have 100 waiting for folks. When they're ready and feel comfortable, they can come in and pick up those permits. We started building inspections, so of course we have not been doing any inspections other than those that we could do virtually. So we had several that were done virtually over the last several weeks, but we started sending 3 inspectors per day out into the field as of last Wednesday. We've got 60 building inspections lined up through the month of, or in the month of May, but we're continuing to set those inspections back up. We had canceled permits plus a waiting list of those that needed, or inspections, so a waiting list of those inspections. We're calling those first, and then we are going to open up our online portal so those who have inspection needs will be able to start requesting those through our online portal, in addition to the permits email address, which they can continue to do and they get on that list. So we're working through that. We're confident we'll be able to get through that backlog and then just get back on track for inspections. And then starting tomorrow, we are going to take in new submittals. So it's by appointment only. We're not opening the door to the public. We're still continuing to operate the way we have been. It's been working well for people to get a hold of our building staff, planning staff, permit staff, by phone, email, Zoom, all of that, and still doing site pre-inspections out in the field. But starting tomorrow, we'll have by appointment only for new submittals. We have 33 that got canceled, so those are our first priorities to get those back rescheduled, and then we'll go on for those in the waiting list. And it's been pretty phenomenal about how, you know, we don't have equipment at home, we don't have printers and copiers, and it's been a struggle for different folks depending on, you know, cell service and everything from home, but everybody has made it work, and it's very impressive, and I just really want to thank everyone in DCD for, I haven't heard a single complaint from anybody, and it's, they could be complaining without me knowing about it, but I haven't heard it. So I'm very impressed, and I think everyone deserves a huge kudos in that department.
We need to get that established, get some of that, small, printers and stuff that are mobile right now while we can.
Yeah.
One question that I've been getting asked quite a bit has been, how are we gonna handle permits that were issued but had, they had to stop work because of the virus and, and extending those out.
Good question.
What's the best way for us to move forward so we give those folks some stability and predictability?
So our department has always been really flexible, so, if there's a 6 months, we do extensions, but we can formally I can bring an ordinance to, I know other jurisdictions have done that, to formally extend.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, so I can work on that and get that in, but in the meantime, just folks can know that we are being flexible and they don't have to worry about not meeting that deadline, and we'll get it.
I've had those same
formally
questions, and that'd be a great way, but I'd sure love to.
I think we need to memorialize that in some way so that, it's
Similar to
clear.
Thurston's.
Yeah, and we all know that here internally that, that you would honor that and everything, but
Right.
to the public at large, they might
Yep.
not have, there's not always that guarantee that's kind of understood out there, so I think
Right.
us taking action would help that out quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Again, the sad part, though, is we're looking at the 19th for the next one if we don't do it right away. How hard is it to write something up quickly?
Well, I wouldn't be able to do it for tomorrow, and I'll have to check to see if it's something, I don't think we'll have to take it to the PAC, but I'd wanna look, but I think the 19th would be okay, and that,
I want to remind you,
Because it would
we don't have a true PAC, so,
right,
okay, so the same requirements are not covered as a true PAC, just keep that in mind. We had changed, before I ever got here, it was changed from a true PAC to, I can't remember what the actual term is. And I served 6 years on it, as you know, but a lot of the things that are required for a PAC for planning and stuff are not for this, because they don't determine anything for your director or any of those other things that were set up originally in the breakdown PAC. So.
Is there a way we can just make sort of an administrative announcement for between now and?
Well, absolutely, yeah.
Maybe you can put it on the website.
Yeah.
yeah, we are drafting how we're operating today for our website, so that when it needs to change, we could change it, so, how we're open and how people could get a hold of us, and I could put something on there about that for deadlines and extensions. I know that there's state guidance on that too, from the directors group, Dave, that we've already gotten, so.
Mhm. Okay. Casey, Concon.
This is a consolidated contract amendment for $250,000. It is a mix between state and federal funding. The state funding we've already received, and this is all to help support public health in the COVID-19 response.
Looks good.
So, and could I
Yeah,
bring
we
it
make you
tomorrow?
come over just for that, Casey,
Yeah.
because we miss you.
And then they always put me last. So will that be okay going tomorrow?
I don't know that we should say no to
Yeah.
$250,000.
Well, is there a reason it can't wait till the 19th? Because we just have to make sure here keep with our transparency goal.
Right.
I've had it for 2 weeks or 3 weeks now, and
But what
I
about-
can't bill on it until I get it spent back.
So you can't bill on it.
But I
And you have stuff right now to bill on it before May
Yes.
19th?
We're okay waiting. If it's
Okay,
better to wait,
yeah.
we're okay waiting.
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't want to push it on how many things we're adding at the last
Starting
minute.
to throw those rocks back.
Right?
The goodwill has run out.
Yeah.
Well, there's a limit.
Because I was last.
There's more behind you.
There's more coming.
When you get back over there, you gotta give Todd a hard time. You took all your goodwill.
Okay, moving on. I do have a request to continue to extend Kel and Alex while I'm still working up at DEM. So keep that moving forward. That's going to continue for a while as we move into recovery ops. that's gonna be a big piece of what we're working on, so. Okay. Okay, on that, and then I have a request to change one FTE from a program assistant to program coordinator. And that is covered within our grant that covers the two programs that that person is working in. And we just like to move it up to program coordinator. The impact's about $12,000 and change.
And all of that is covered.
And all that's covered by grant money.
There'd be no increase to the FTE count, is what Dave and I worked on.
Right.
So we'd have to send this person a notice, also advertise within their collective bargaining agreement of a promotional opportunity. That person has to apply. And we don't have to go external though.
Right.
So, and that person's the only person in the position. We just can't, you know, pre-give the job to that person for the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay, we good with that? Okay, move forward with that. And let's see, moving on. There's just so much fun stuff. Okay, so we did want to talk this morning about Mason County application for variance from phase 1 to phase 2. So, finished working on this about 6:30 this morning, based on new information that came in like 10 o'clock last night. So I took the Governor Inslee's plan to reopen Washington and used the 4-piece criteria within that to build this document. So public health criteria, readiness and capabilities, all the different pieces that he's been talking about as he's been addressing Washington. And then use this as a checklist to build this document. Then after I built the document, the bones of this, went back through all the emails we've had over the last several weeks, and then all the discussions that we've had amongst John Weisman, Kathy Lofi, the folks at Public Health, both at the state level and then amongst the county peers. Added those pieces in here as well. The data I used, I pulled from DOH's website so that we wouldn't have any kind of argument on whose data we're using. We're going to use DOH's information. We'll just go with that. Call it good. Let's see. Pulled data from the hospital. The biggest things we're looking at here is to make sure that we can move forward and still stay safe. So those are the two goals in putting this document together. Now, when Governor Inslee put this out on Friday, we weren't part of the initial 10 counties that they were looking at putting out there. But by the end of Friday afternoon, they had looked at adding another 6 to that. So the latest word we got is Mason is in that next group of 6. So that was the real impetus to push this through over the weekend and get this thing written.
So I think the other 6 was Mason County, Lewis, Pacific, Clipperton, Stevens, and San Juan.
Right. So, and all of us are running about the same epidemiological curves and timelines. So, all those counties dovetail, I think, pretty nicely, and that would put us, if we get the variance, that would put us in conjunction with Grays Harbor and Jefferson. So we would really mesh as a region and have that piece done. Some of the things that came out last night. We're talking about what the CDC recommendation is. The biggest part of this discussion all along is what's the trigger? What is the point where we say we're low enough, we can move forward? And some of the guidelines we're getting from the feds is we can get below 0.77 cases per 1,000 population per day. So less than a case per day per 1,000. That would be okay to move forward. So when I ran those numbers back through a Mason County lens and said, let's look at that for 64,000 people, what does that look like? So it comes out to, if you look at the bottom of, or middle of page 3, I think it is. I'll move to page 4. Our calculations comes out to 45 cases per day per 64,000, so 0.45 cases in Mason County per day. Less than a half a case. When we run our data from when we first started tracking the first testing out of the 1st of March through the 1st of May, we come out to right now at 0.38 cases per day, which is well below that 0.45 number. So we're well below what I think the CDC would consider a safe number to move forward. So that's kind of where we're pinning this to, and hoping that goalposts don't get moved in the interim.
And that's with us testing so many more. It made me crazy when all this happened. I started doing the research right away. He had given me a heads up that they were looking for 3 weeks, and it drove me nuts. So I go look at Jefferson County and I see we're testing 30. We had one where we tested almost 50, but yet they tested 3. It's easy to get to not find a positive when you test 3. You know.
And that was a big part of the discussion. Is 3 weeks with no cases a realistic number? Probably not. You know, I don't think anybody's going to make that. And you could have something, and I think it may have happened to us already, where you have those cases that are tested but they're not attributed to a county, and then they suddenly get attributed to a county. Well, now you just messed up your 10-day run, or your 3-week run. So amongst all of us, we talked a lot about that over the weekend. What is the right number? What's the R0, which is the level of infectability, versus our population, versus testing? Because yes, they want to do more testing, but as we get into summertime and the number of people presenting with COVID symptoms starts to decline, and is declining, the requirement for doing testing also declines if we're pinning testing to symptomatic people, and then pinning that as well to close contacts. So we're good on the testing piece. We have the capability. As far as our ability to jump on and do contact tracing, we're all over that. We definitely meet the criteria. We do all of our case investigations within 24 hours. So we're all on top of that. We've protected our vulnerable populations. We've not had any outbreaks in our nursing homes, and we coordinated with them on the very first day of this thing. At the very beginning, they were our first partner that we contacted, and they've been great about being compliant. The public's been very compliant. You go out in the community and you see people are doing what they're supposed to do. The businesses are doing what they're supposed to do. So it seems like now is the right time to push this forward with the understanding that we need to be careful as we go and make sure that our businesses have plans in place to make sure that they maintain social distancing and safety.
Well, and I'm sure like the restaurants in North Mason, one of them said a plan all on their own they had put together. I think they said it to you as well, that was very strict, very tight. It's like, yeah, that's what it takes. It takes you guys to figure out how you can open it up.
Our business community has been great about putting together plans. We've seen some plans that they've sent to us say, as we go forward, this is what we want to do, and they're great.
And they all comply with all the guidelines, the regulations.
Right.
Yeah, they're amazing.
So now is the time to move this forward, I think, with the addition of the 6 counties for conversation, I guess we can call it that. Right after this meeting, I'll meet with Dr. Stein. He and I will proof this, make sure there's no gaps from his point of view. We're going to meet at 2 o'clock this afternoon to go through it in even more detail, to make sure that we've not missed and have any gaps in the document. At 4:30, we have a phone call with the other counties involved and DOH as well to talk about what a waiver or a variance would look like for these 6 counties. And then it's going to be a matter of running this back through. We need a resolution for the Board of County Commissioners and a resolution for the Board of Health. And then the hospital will have to sign off as well. So it's a three-phase thing to sign off. So it'll take probably another week and would require some special meetings to get that done. And we could do that through Zoom.
Yeah.
And Dr. Gashi is helping with this too, right?
Right, so we'll be contacting him as well. And Chief Ryan is our current area command. Do you have any comments back there?
We just talked about some of our observations within the community, within the county, within the state, within the United States, and the polarization that's occurring. And people are taking up sides on one side of it or way far on the other side. And what our job as area command and the messaging that we want to make sure we have a tone for is that we're going to actively pursue recovery, but we're going to do it with respect. We're going to do it with balance, and we're going to always consider the safety of our citizens. So we want to try to really bring our messaging to bring some of those people on the outline back in, because as a community, we can do way more with unity than we can if we're divided. As a state, we can as well, and we don't necessarily have control over that, but we can have some influence on our community, and that's where we're really pushing to keep everybody safe through unity and through the work that Dave and everybody else is doing in pursuing recovery, because over here it's the fear of more infections and death, and over here it's the fear of losing their liberties and their businesses, and you've got to appeal to both because those are both real fears. So we have to address all of that as an area of command. So that's what we're working on in our messaging and where we're focusing. And what a great team. There's just great people out there.
Amazing team, yeah.
Giving the people an opportunity, they're doing a lot of it themselves. And one quick story is a husband and wife in the store. Husband's got the information on his phone, keeps trying to show the guy keeps backing up, and she finally says to him, listen, keep your distance, give him his distance, just tell him.
That's respect.
Yeah.
Everybody's in a different place.
Well, I think we've come a long way in 2 weeks too with being able to kind of, understand where we are from a PPE perspective, understand where we are from a testing capacity perspective. I thought Dan's piece, Dr. Stein's piece in the journal this week was helpful in kind of outlining where we are with that. And then also understanding kind of what the target metric needs to be for cases. I think there's the reality that we have to come to terms with on both sides of this, that this is going to be persistent. Minus a vaccine, it's probably not going to be eradicated. It could be seasonal and cyclical, and so we need to be understanding of that. And at the same time, we need to be understanding, as Chief Furlough was talking about on the other side, where we're going to have to try to reopen things in a sensible, safe way as much as we can. And so I think we've come a long way in the past couple of weeks. I don't know that 0 is a realistic goal. It's maybe a very optimistic goal. We would love to see it get down to that, but even with communicable diseases that we have vaccines for, we still see pop up. Measles is a good example. We just a couple of years ago here, we're kind of on the forefront of that. So I think this is a thoughtful approach. One of the things that I would like to throw out, and I don't know if still really kind of the phases and what's allowable and not is still, obviously I think up in some cases to some interpretation and that kind of thing, but if there's a way that we could start incorporating back some elements of the OPMA as we move phase to phase, that it's not a binary, got to get to phase 4 in order to be able to go back to having, some semblance of, public in our meetings and public input and those kinds of things. So if you can get some clarity on what elements maybe we can, I know with phase 2, the gatherings of no more than 5 people or whatever, if there's a way that we can have some relaxation on OPMA to allow, for 5 people, at a time to make comment or things like that. Because I know we have hearings that we punted on, at the outset here that we're going to have to make a decision on in the next couple of weeks, and I think that would be helpful for the public to know, what kind of the future looks like. If the intent is not to get back to having public participation in our business until we get to phase 4, I think that's another one of those areas that becomes problematic from a governing standpoint. So if there's some maybe give and take on that, so that we could, if you come in and mask up, or you come in and a couple at a time, and so on and so forth, I think giving us an opportunity to manage through that like businesses do, we'll be able to with, kind of controlling the flow of customers and that kind of thing. If we can find a way to bring that in, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, it's been in flux. We had basically a plan done last Thursday and had to set it aside Thursday night. And then some of the pieces within that 4th phase plan have moved. So you see that, I think government was in phase 4 and now it's moved back to phase 3. So there are some things that have moved around. Landscaping was in phase 2, now it's in phase 1. So based on the comments that we did last week, things did get changed.
I think Eric with Wasack said on Friday that they were going to find out how this affects the OPMA. So hopefully he'll have an answer today.
Yeah. So then I guess the other question is, you know, the timeline is what it is on this. I'm good if, you know, Dan signs off on this today, Dr. Simon signs off on it today, Dr. Gushy is good with it, whoever else from your hospital district up north is good with it, you know, I'm fine. And if there's a way to expedite your timeline, I'm good with that, but if this is a timeline that we have to keep with, I'm also okay with that.
Yeah, try to keep it within the OPMA stuff, so, you know,
But
that's
sooner
all
is
the
better,
guidelines.
let's get, because even once we get all this thing through, get it approved, there's gonna be some hiccups and some
Yeah.
things we have to overcome.
And we'll know more tonight, after that phone call, on what the timelines might actually look like,
Yeah.
so.
And then just the other two things is one, you know, once we get to the point where we're taking action on this, if we can couple that with a public release, to let folks know that we're working on this. And then the other thing is if we can include our legislative delegation on,
Okay.
you know, send this to them so that they're aware that we're
Yeah.
working on it as well.
Now, when you're saying you're okay, are you okay with putting it on tomorrow, or would you like to do it in the form of a special meeting? Because we can still do a special meeting too, it doesn't bother me.
I
as
think,
long as-
I think a special meeting might be, because it's not finalized yet, a special meeting might be,
Perhaps we can set up so we have a special meeting the same day for the Board of Health as well.
yeah.
And this way we can get it all done.
What constitutes a quorum? How many people do you need for the Board of Health?
I'll have to look at that. I think it's 5.
Yeah, when I started,
I
it
think
was
so,
3.
Yeah.
It was just the commission, we were sitting there, there was 2 of us brand new, one never showed up, and we're looking at each other and said, we don't have a clue what the hell we're doing. Why are we voting?
Because I think it's 5
So we
that
changed
changed
it.
so. But we can set that up for the same day, I'll get with Diane. As soon as I know more tonight, I'll get with Diane tomorrow morning, and we can knock this stuff out.
Well, we can do it in the form of Zoom also if we have to,
Right.
just,
Yeah.
as long as we just get it done, get it voted, and get it.
Yeah, that way we can get it out, you know, get it published.
I appreciate
So people
all
have-
the work you've done on this, and all of you, actually, all the work all of you have done, it's very much appreciated, including you, Commissioner. Seriously, thank you for showing up every morning to meet with that team, it's very much appreciated.
There's no playbook for this.
Yeah.
No.
No, I mean, yeah, nobody's recovered from a pandemic like this before, not that's still alive, so.
We're doing well though.
Yeah, well, I think Mason County is well ahead of a lot of the surrounding counties that we went into incident command early, went to area command early, and really started nailing down some plans right off the bat. And have decided that, you know, no plan is set in concrete, we're not married to any one thing, and that's given us the ability to adjust as we go along. Because we had 2 full plans written last week that we just set aside.
I talked to you right after one, he was pissed. Drop another one in the trash.
It's, I mean, there are a lot of words.
There's valuable tools in there.
How much, you know, you mentioned that Mason County is likely in the next group of 6. How much does our kind of proximity to Kitsap, Pierce, and Thurston play into why we were left off the initial?
It probably has a good part in that. I think so, because I mean, we do have, you know, a considerable part of our population, you know, commutes to those 2 other communities and bedrooms here. So that's something I know we'll look at. Something we talked about in a meeting a week ago, maybe, when Thurston was like, you know what?
Oh, yeah,
That was
Thursday.
midweek, yeah.
Yeah, Thursday, yeah.
Yeah.
So we've had those conversations as a region amongst public health, trying to say, oh, so what really does it look like as a public health region? Is that the right thing to do? You know, is it the FEPR regions, the public health response regions? Is it the ACH? And basically we decided it's none of those, it's what we put together.
You know, there's no secret, I wanna see us open up and do it in a smart, intelligent way. But with that being said, I'm gonna ask a question that's gonna get me in a lot of trouble, but it's one I've been thinking, and I don't think we can, but I've gotta ask it anyway. Is there any possibility that we can limit some of these businesses to servicing people that are from here? For example, you have a restaurant, you can imagine, once we open that up, that Kitsap County or Thurston County that can't, would love to have a seat. And I worry about that, because they're gonna be limited to 50%. There's gonna be a limit on what they can do. I'd sure love to see if there's any possibility that we can control that. And I'm not asking for an answer, maybe I'm asking you to look at options, because that could also, they're not gonna have a problem doing 50%. It'd be nice if those 50% could be local, so the risk is less too, that's all I'm saying.
I know Grace Harbor went on, they did a media blast and asking people to stay out of their county.
I know, but I was worried, actually, I was thinking the other way, I was thinking, can we do it quietly? You know, because you tell somebody no, somebody said to me yesterday, as soon as somebody says you can't have a drink of water, you get thirsty, just the way it is.
I was gonna say, you're hitting the same thing we brought up when they did with the parks.
Yeah.
Because that was one of our big concerns was, we're gonna have a lot of people coming from all over the place to come here to hike like they normally would do. But I've heard like Ocean Shores and a couple other places, they did get on and say, hey, even though we're gonna be open and we have this open, we'd appreciate if you would just, you know, come, give us a couple months to get us back on our feet. And put it that way to them, that, oh, okay, well, we'll get coming. But then we can offer it up to the locals, you know, that way. Yeah. So that is a concern of ours too, we thought about that also, yeah.
Okay,
Still have one from Kel.
did I miss one?
Belfair.
Oh, the Belfair?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that is going on action agenda tomorrow, so it's another leftover, from some changes that got adopted at the end of 2017, and we caught that Unicode was never notified. It wasn't ever attached to the original ordinance. So we made those changes last year, and then we found an additional thing. It's in the residential zones in Belfair. It was reduced to a 5-foot setback instead of 10. One might have been 15, but we reduced it to 5, or that was, I don't know if you were on the board, but you weren't on there.
I believe you were,
But
Paula
that was
was here.
2017.
Yeah.
So this is just, getting an ordinance so that we could send it to Unicode and track the changes. You're not adopting anything new or considering anything that wasn't done in 2017.
I want to thank you for finding a way to get this done so quickly. That was very much appreciated. As usual, find a way to get to yes, you do exceptionally well. One other question of something I just saw though. Can you look at what may have been done in the past when it came to lot size coverage? Because I think that's another thing that I'm looking at, and I think we need some adjustments to it that are not in here.
If we can make changes to the
It
lot
doesn't have
size,
to
but
be on
that'll
this now.
go through a full, yeah.
I'm just telling you that I think
Sure.
we did that as part of that other one as well, because we had a situation where they couldn't pencil because we were able to build larger percentages in the rural area than we were in the urban growth, which made no sense. And I'm looking at 30% coverage on some of them and only 50% on the high density areas. So that doesn't make sense, because it's not what it was designed for. So I'm just asking, look
Sure.
and see if that's something that was supposed to have been changed too, so we can bring it up soon.
I'll just kind of maybe piggyback on that, similar but different. We had talked earlier this year, or maybe late last year, about, I did with staff about relooking at our process for boundary line adjustment and lot combinations, and so just kind of want to revisit that here is, you know, especially in light of the EIS and some of the other things, and just kind of, you know, I know we've talked about streamlining processes and that kind of thing, but just kind of want to throw that back on the radar too.
And I agree, because there's some that don't go through any of the stuff we do to make that happen. I would love to get there, it makes sense, we definitely have knowledgeable staff that can pull it off. I don't know why we have to create extra hoops, so I would like that too. Not that you do anything else in your plate.
Yeah. All right, well, that's all I have.
Thank your nurses and everybody over there. They're just doing an amazing job. They're spot on. They're amazing.
All right, super. All right, thanks.
All right, appreciate it.
We take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Feels good to stretch.
Stand up.
Yeah.
You're on.
Thank you, Kelly.
We're gonna move into our Public Works briefing. Go around the room for introductions.
Kevin Judy.
Kelly Frazier?
Paddy McGuire.
Richard Dickinson.
Loretta Swanson.
Peter Cannon.
Randy Neville?
And Sharon Trask. Take
All
her away.
right, okay, good morning, Commissioners. We need to extend the lead pay for our two finance folks, one that handles public works and the other that handles utilities operations. And we'll be doing that until we fill the finance manager position,
I'm
which we
supportive.
hope will be fairly soon, but,
Yeah.
Good with me.
all right, thank you. And then the next item is a contract amendment for our contract with Kennedy Jinks for the Belfair sewer design to PSIC. And this was anticipated and included in our original contract, but when we got to this point in time, we needed to develop what the actual scope and budget is for the remaining work on the contract, and that's what you see before you today. We did have an overall cap of 1.5 million for both projects, and they are under that cap at this point.
Because that's the money that was put forward already?
We have 2.5 million at this point. We have a $2 million grant and another $500,000 grant. And so we've got that, and then we also have the potential contribution from the city of Bremerton as well, that they had committed up to 1 million. So we're sitting okay in terms of revenues to move forward. We will need to do a budget amendment, however, so we'll get with Jennifer on that.
And then she just
Identify.
mentioned it to us.
Yes,
She did.
exactly.
To us, I mean, she did.
Okay, perfect. So take a look at cash flow and determine whether or not it's necessary to do it in this next quarter, or whether we can wait until the following quarter to do that.
And then just to follow up with solid waste, we said we were gonna buy an excavator. You gave us permission to last month, well, actually in March. We went out, we had 3 different machines we were looking at, and 2 of them were responsive, a third was not. The CAT excavator we looked at came in at $270,911. That is not our first choice, not just because it was more than the other, but it just was a bad fit for our operators and for the environment it was in. We settled on the John Deere excavator, which is actually really nice for our shop too, because we standardized with other John Deere, exact same model. And that came in at $235,000, so about $15,000 underneath what the top end of what we were telling you. And so that's actually on site. And we're just waiting for the grapple orbital attachment to be delivered. And then they'll take it away for a week or two and put that on and bring it back, and we're good to go. Other things I think you should probably want to be updated on here, in wastewater. One of our operators resigned at the end of the month, a couple weeks ago. We do not, at this point, we're not going to ask to refill that. We feel we can make it a go. He was actually scheduled and stationed at Russellwood. So we're going to see how far we can go without it, but I think we can do it fine without refilling that position. What else do we got? I'll tell you about Belfair Lift Station 1, Pump 2, the pump that we had sent out to get repaired. It came back, it was installed, it runs great, just perfect timing because the other pump.
I knew you were gonna tell me.
It disintegrated 2 days before we got that one back, which we were able to save a little bit of money because the crane was on site to pull it. The manufacturer's truck was on site, so we loaded it up on their truck and sent it off to them. Initially, what we know is that the impeller had dropped on the shaft and was against the casing on the bottom, so it might just be as simple as a keeper that happened. I doubt it.
What about the
simple.
redundancy one we've discussed?
I've got a bid for that. I have not gone forward with that at all. I'm hoping that maybe we'd be able to incorporate that, if we did have to have that expense, use some of that low interest loan money that we're doing the Belfair plant with, or the extension with, to get us up to speed on those items.
I don't know, you know, you're down to one again, it makes sense to,
What'd your bid look like?
50,000.
yeah, that wasn't bad, that's what,
Yes.
but being without it,
Right, it
Right.
keeps me up.
yeah, it should.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it does. Actually, we had to have AAA septic transfer from station.
That
one
one
to
may go up, but
station
the
three.
damage that'll occur between now and then will cost us more now.
Yeah, it definitely has that potential.
Yep.
I'll reaffirm that quote and see what we can do. I'll move forward. Let's see what else. Solid waste. Zach, we've noticed with the change in COVID and the change in our no commercial flow coming in, lots and lots of residential flow coming in, it's kind of shifted the pattern on how that comes in into the, and so he's actually adjusted his operator's schedule to meet that, which is a good thing. But while doing that, we've also started looking at the booth attendant schedules to better fit this whole situation. I mean, currently we have overtime every day for people going up to Belfair. We can get rid of all of that with a little bit of schedule change and actually reduce some of the hours of the solid waste attendant we currently have. So we're looking at how we're going to do that. We've actually got a couple of draft schedules at work.
And had some conversations.
We've had some conversations with the booth attendants and the operators, because they'd have a part in this too, to make it work. Everybody seems to be on board at the moment. We need to come down and talk with Don, and we also need to talk to him, the union, and we're marching that way. So we're just trying to be as proactive as we can right now about reducing any sort of costs.
That's greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah, so that solid waste attendant shift would be going from a 980 schedule to 410s. So it's nothing outside of their contract as far as hours and days, but it's just something to have a conversation about with them to make sure it goes well.
And the union.
Yes, and
Yes.
definitely the union. Do you have anything else? I don't think I have anything else.
So flow control.
Flow control. No, I did have something else. There you go. Thank you.
Here to help.
Me and Zach had a meeting last week with Mason County Garbage, last Thursday. Because we wanted it, something in writing, like how are you going to do this? Flow control's here, now. We did know before the April 30th or April 1st deadline, we knew that they had to acquire some other equipment to make this happen. They ordered it, and of course with the COVID, they've been getting nothing but responses of, it's delayed, it's not here yet. And I mean, I can believe that. We ordered Zach a truck this year, and that's all we've been getting is it's delayed, it's further out. We're making ventilators at GM. So, I mean, they're out a little bit. Best case scenario, they'd be fully compliant by July 1st. Worst case, I think September 1st. All roll-off is coming towards us now. So right now, the only thing that's really holed up is all the commercial. Well, there's no commercial at the moment to worry about. So
Well, there is now.
yeah, exactly. But so
Now, is there anything you want me to say to Commissioner Wolf on meet with Wednesday?
it just to make sure they sign that interlocal agreement.
Right.
And I know they have it. I figured they may have, because Kitsap reached out to me and asked me what they wanted us to tell people. And, yeah, I said, well, all commercial needs to come back to Mason County. We would like it if all came back, but our resolution doesn't address self-haulers to be regulated. So they're planning on turning them around, and Mason County Garbage knows that they potentially will get turned around even before they're ready to come. So they'll just have to deal with it at that point.
And that really is where the rubber meets the road, is right there at their station, and that they are turning folks around.
Yeah, then they have no choice.
So how long have they had the interlocal?
Well, right after our meeting, we had.
Right after
since
board action, so that
January?
was, yeah, since ended December 1st of January, I believe.
Yeah.
And does that require a signature from their commission, or is that a staff level? Do you know?
Their commission.
Yeah, I don't know, because our requirement is our requirement, it doesn't actually, what I remember, doesn't actually require theirs.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
but it's appreciated
Yes.
if they
Some
do.
kind of acknowledgement.
Yeah. and
Exactly.
So if you like, when I'm talking to him, I'll
No, that'd be great.
try and make sure we get some acknowledgement. He's going out to look at some potential stuff with our rail yards and stuff.
Nice. If you need another copy of that, we can have Kelly.
Might as well send it to me in the email, this way it's right
Take it up
there.
with you.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
on top of the list of 10,000 other ones that I have in my email. Yeah.
What about the Burke contract? You wanted approval from Loretta?
Oh, yeah.
Right, right.
Yes.
We kind of touched that,
Yeah,
or Kel did.
that you want to wrap
Yeah.
that up and.
Yeah.
Were there any concerns that you
Not
had?
immediately, no. If any, it was just simply to provide what information we have to Burke so that they can get rolling.
Well, we're looking at putting it on right away. It's in your court right now to tell us if you have an issue, so
Okay,
we stop, or can we go ahead and move forward?
go for it,
Okay, thank you.
go for it.
Good deal.
Okay.
Thanks.
And let's see, we also have been monitoring more closely both road fund and utility and waste budgets, all of the various utility funds. And so far, we're not seeing any concerning revenue hits on our utilities. But as I said, we're continuing to watch that closely.
Have you seen any uptick or change in people that are delinquent, maybe between March and April?
Not yet,
Mhm.
not yet. Yeah, not yet. Which is, yeah, it's good. And like, of course, solid waste is kind of different on that. It's a pay-as-you-go service, and they're up literally 25%. We were averaging just filling 4 of those containers every day. You know, we're filling 5 on average every day.
About the spring cleaning.
Exactly.
That's why it's all cleaning the garage out, right?
Right, yeah, no, and that's just it, yeah, you can see where that's happened, everybody's coming on Mondays right now, because they think nobody's there, and hardly anybody comes on Saturday anymore, so that's why they're like, we gotta shift this around.
And then other things on the roadside, we've got we had a couple of slides that happened during the declared event, and Eels Hill work is underway at this time, and that's moving right along. And then, I did have a question, Commissioners, we need to pick up a spray truck over in Spokane area. Are we still holding tight on travel outside of the county at this point? Is that?
Well, you're in the middle of spray though, I consider that personally essential.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, we'll need to send 2 folks. Our first question was, hey, can you deliver? And they're like, no, we're not delivering.
Yeah, right now.
Darn it. And so we would send 2 people and have them basically wear masks on the way over, and then they would be in separate rigs on the way back.
Yeah, I think you need to do that.
Okay. Alrighty, and then the other business, we need to review the temps with Dawn, and then we'll be bringing that to commissioners during the next briefing and action. So you can consider the hiring of our temporary flaggers. And I understand, Commissioner Schutte, at the last briefing, you were asking about what else could we do aside from hire temporary flaggers, how else could we get this work accomplished? So that will be part of our briefing to answer that. Okay?
Just like that contingency planning.
Yes. Okay, I think that
Speaking of
was-
that, just want to say the word reorg as a reminder.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, had a conversation with, yes, it's on the table. Okay.
Thank you for filling in the holes on coal.
Oh, and that's the other thing we'll be bringing up. I'm sorry, Commissioner, thank you for reminding me. We, I know we talked about the rail crossings and the need for some work there. A representative from the railroad contacted us and said they are submitting a grant application to redo both the Cole and the Lynch crossings. And if they were to be successful for that grant, then they would be doing work, they thought, in 2020, as early as 2022. And the grants will require a local match. When we first discussed this, we thought it was for the entire project, but I guess it's just for the design phase, so it's a much smaller financial impact. But we'll be bringing that forward to commissioners to make sure that that's something that you would like to approve with the local match out of road fund for that PE phase of the project.
No, Lynch is far worse than, coal is far worse than Lynch.
Yes.
I know that there were issues with Lynch, but.
Yeah, I think they figured since they're mobbing and they're gonna have a crew out there, they might as well, this work doesn't come around very often. So they feel it's best just to take care of both at the same time.
I noticed that we had a short delay on Clifton. What happened on that, just curiosity?
For starting the project, they were just a little bit delayed on all of the others as well,
Okay.
rain essentially.
Has there been any design changes or anything, or can I use that same picture that was created by Diane Sheasley?
No design changes.
So, no, okay.
Conversations still about swapping. The state's still interested in potentially doing the switch between Clifton and SR 300. So we're figuring out ways to.
And of course, they would bring it completely up to code and install a traffic circle before we do that, right?
Exactly.
That's
exactly what we're
That
thinking as well.
In
Sounds
Squid,
like
that's
a
what they
great
did.
deal.
It was amazing the stuff they pulled together up there and the exchanges that they got the state to pull up to code before they did their exchanges.
Exactly.
Interesting fact, they're 1 foot short on each of their lanes going through the middle of town. They sploogered everything. The engineer said to me, this was before I even ran for county commissioner, I was thinking about it back in the day, says, if I'd have been a county, I could have never pulled this off. But they're 1 foot short through the middle of town, where they're supposed to be 12 or 11, or 10 or 11. They even got the state to give them planters with plants in them.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, he was a great negotiating engineer.
Good deal. And that reminds me also up in Hoodsport, one last update. We've got a draft agreement for the maintenance and the placement of the signs. So that's slowly chugging away. We're happy though that our DOT contact decided to delay retirement for another year, so that's also a bonus. Dale's been great to work with, so.
I'm sure he's still out on whether or not he's happy, but.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Yeah. So anywho, that's chugging along also.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any updates on the conversations with the Navy and the folks at Lake Limerick on the seismic?
No.
Okay.
No, had some conversations back and forth with Lake Limerick. And Mike and I were talking the other day that we'd like to follow up with the Navy as well, because we would like for that project to go this summer, if at all possible. I don't know if they're thinking that way because of some other things that they're dealing with on their permits, but it would be advantageous to us for it to be able to happen during the dry time and during the summer.
Anything we need to do to share that message?
I don't believe so at this point, commissioners. They've been pretty receptive. I think that it wouldn't have anything to do with our request. It would have to do with other, if they said no, it would have to do with bigger contract issues that we wouldn't have any control over one way or the other. So, but thank you. If there is something, we'll definitely ask.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Commissioners, nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
By the way, thank you for being so responsive on that phone call, and they were ecstatic with just the idea that you're gonna stand behind and try and help. Very ecstatic, actually, to the point to where they're not even going to complain.
Good.
Which changes from the Facebook post that were saying they were gonna go for a lot more than that.
We're trying to avert a lawsuit over the North Basin bond and the fact that we weren't in complete compliance with the law in terms of being open to the public for people to register to vote. And there were people who were threatening to sue, and we hopefully have another avenue to pursue that we won't be spending all our money on lawyers.
Yep, sounds like it.
So, I am here to talk to you about the first of two grants our elections division is receiving. The first, which is actually the second, is related, we're government, is related to the CARES Act provided $400 million to the states for COVID costs and preparedness in elections. That money went to $8.3 million, went to the Secretary of State. There was a 20% state match. Secretary Wyman negotiated with the governor's office and got the state match out of the COVID emergency fund. And I have signed paperwork to receive $169,510. This is, unlike most federal grants, this is cash in advance, not a reimbursable grant. So hopefully this week we're going to get a check for $169,510. There are a couple kickers on this. One, it can't supplant current expenses, so it needs to be new things related to preparedness. And it all has to be spent by December 31st, 2020. The reason we want to fast track this and get your approval to receive and expend the money is the one major piece of equipment I want to purchase is a sorter. Currently, when ballots come in from the post office or from ballot drop boxes, we have people sit at a big table, count out batches of 50, wrap them in rubber bands, label them, and put them in a mail tray to do signature checks. A sorter will allow us to bring the ballots in. Someone will have to go through those that come from ballot drop boxes and get them pointed in the right direction, pop them in the sorter. It will batch them, put them in batches of 50. We do 50 in our county. Label the batch, just pull it out throw a rubber band around them and put them in a mail tray. And so it's gonna significantly reduce the amount of time and the number of people we have in the ballot processing room. The other benefit is that the sorter takes an image of the signatures, which significantly reduces the amount of time we have to handle the ballots, because currently we hold up the ballot to the image on the computer screen, or hold up the envelope to the image on the computer screen. And in this case, it's going to be the image from the voter registration file and the image from the envelope. And so we're comparing image to image, so less handling of the ballot. The advantage to that, to the voter, is that the new image, that when it's accepted, then gets saved in the voter registration file. So we end up, instead of one image per voter, which is what we currently have, you end up with multiple images, up-to-date signatures, because people's signatures do evolve over time. We have people with 25-year-old signatures, and you know, every year it becomes a little harder to match those. In this case, we'll be able to keep the signatures on file as they evolve. It'll essentially being matched to the last signature or any signature in the file. Every medium-sized county in the state wants to buy one of these sorters. There is a single source. There are a bunch of companies that make sorters that would not fit in this room, like giganto ones like they have in King County. There is one company that makes a small sorter for a medium-sized county that is 6 feet long and 2 feet wide. It's a relatively new product, and everybody in Washington State wants one. I have used my connections, and there's one sitting in Phoenix with our name on it if we sign the paperwork right away. And so hence the desire to get this done quickly so I can sign the paperwork and we can get one of these.
Are you asking for the 19th, or are you asking for tomorrow?
Tomorrow would be better.
But what are you asking for? Because you can't do a budget amendment in one day. Because if you have authority in your budget, you have the money, you have authority then to purchase what you need. Then when we hold our budget hearing, it would be replenished basically.
Yeah, that's fine. But according to the Federal Election Assistance Commission, the source of this money, we can attribute any expenses going back to January 10th, which is the beginning date of the pandemic. So there won't be a problem with the feds. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
I was gonna say, are you looking from us ahead, American Free Us, is that?
That'll do, if you tell me.
But let's go back, I know you were talking about an ILA with.
So we don't need an interlocal agreement.
Okay.
The Island County just did an RFP to purchase this equipment. There was some question, our interlocal agreement with Island County is rather ancient. It is identical though, it is old, but it is identical to the current interlocal agreements. So I talked to Tim, he doesn't believe we need to do an updated interlocal.
So you want to piggyback then on the
Island County RFP, correct.
So tomorrow we should probably put that on the agenda because he would be piggybacking on, how much is this piece of equipment?
$65,000.
Okay. So it's an elections ballot sorter,
It's a ballot sorter,
$65K.
correct.
And you would purchase it via the Island
County RFP.
ILA. Okay.
Yeah, yes. And they did that, they did their RFP last December, and awarded, I think, in February. So it's brand new.
As long as it's clear too on our language that it's fully grant funded and not.
Right.
No, 100%, yeah, this is no local match, that's all, that match is all done.
So with the remaining 100.
Well, this is why Kelly's here. So one of the things we're doing is, we've sort of done, imagining, how you run a presidential election, assuming that, the diseases come back in the fall, we're full pandemic mode, the building is closed, what the heck, you know, how do we do that? And we've thought about buying a trailer, we've sort of been renting tents, doing all sorts of things. We have come to the conclusion and had some discussions with Kelly about essentially moving the election voting center is the legal title from upstairs down into the ballot processing room. Having access through the back door, replacing the door that's there with an automatic door so it's handicapped accessible, and building a counter just inside the new doors so that the public would not come in this door and go up the stairs to register to vote before election day. They'd come in the back door and be serviced there. We could design a space, you know, it's a blank slate, so we can design a space where there's handicapped accessible counter, stand-up counter,
Ballot drop off in the alley.
putting in the, you know, drive-through ballot, moving the ballot drop box from in front to the side of the building so people don't have to get out of their cars. They can just drive by, drop them off. Just doing everything we can do to adapt to the possibility that this building is closed to the public, but we're required by law to be open to the public. And just, you know, what that would look like. Do you want to talk any more about?
You know, we just sat down the other day and just tried to come up with something to eliminate the flow upstairs, and how do we do that? One of the things was the elections, and if we can learn to have elections downstairs, we have all the handicap parking, we have it all there. I think all we need is maybe a signage, maybe a awning that says elections, maybe an open sign. I think we can teach that that's where the new elections department is, instead of going upstairs. It would be down here. I mean, 95% of the people are elderly, and I think would be essential to have.
And we think even if the world has returned to normal, you know, we think that would be an improved workspace anyway. That, you know, this isn't just a knee-jerk response to the potential that you know, we may be in really difficult situations, but we think that would be a really nice way to serve the public, a way to be public-facing without making people come in and go upstairs and be next to the treasurer's office, you know, go by the treasurer's office to get to us and all those sorts of things. So that's at least our current thinking. We're not as far along as buying the sorter, but that's at least our current thinking about that.
Is it, I mean, I'm not trying to trivialize it, but is it just for having a space available for people to register during the voting period, or?
It's registering, it's replacement ballots, you know, so anybody, we get a lot of requests for replacement ballots, and, you know, in the days before the presidential election, I know it's gonna be complete madness around here when people realize they can't find their ballot, and, you know, tomorrow's the election, and the dog ate their ballot, and they'll have to come in and see us.
So that's also where we store ballots as they come in, right? Would that pose any issues with ballot security, having that become the main clearinghouse for all election activities?
So what we are imagining is essentially, think of the vestibule in the front of the building, that there will be a public, the outer doors, and then a counter that you would come into. And so we'll have to figure out ballot flow, whether ballots come in the front door and go in the back door of the ballot processing room. We're not that far. Mm-hmm. Or whether you have another door that goes off to the side for people bringing in ballots. We need to get somebody in there who does industrial design to sort of help us with all that and traffic flow. I mean, yeah, not my forte, but there are people who understand that, and we have some money, so, you know, it makes sense to spend a little of that and get it properly designed so it works. And you know, there's also the storage area, a large closet off of there, where we store things. I mean, one of the things I want to be able to do is buy new storage containers in there. What we have there is almost 20 years old from the HAVA, Help America Vote Act of 2002. We bought all new furniture. It's old and tired and the locks don't work very well, and it would be nice to use this as an opportunity to replace all that. We just had a security review from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security on our space. I'd be happy to talk to you about that in more detail when we're not in public session, because it's for official use only, and I'd rather not have it broadcast on the web. But things like the lack of security cameras in there. The second grant that I'll get to in just a second is related to cybersecurity, and so we can use some of that money to do some security improvements. So I think there's going to be sort of a mix and match of funds depending on what things are security and what things are COVID related. One of the other things I want to do is put live streaming cameras in there so people can be elections observers without being in the room. Just, you know, in this era, I mean, if somebody had wanted to observe the election that occurred last Tuesday, our plan was to make them stand up at the window outside and look in.
With the rain.
Yeah, lousy solution, and compliant with the law, lousy solution. But I think we can put live streaming cameras in there and put it on YouTube, and people can sit in their living room and observe, and that's legal. So I think, you know, that will be part of the COVID response, because rather than out of the security pot, I mean, that money could probably go out of either pot of money. So we'll just have to sort of mix and match dollars.
And I know you don't need to hear what I'm about to say, but I gotta say it anyway, because
yeah,
the opportunities are there. You know, I know the money can't be used to supplant, I understand that, but there's always ways to redirect, restructure or something. We're looking at a situation here shortly where we're talking about, you know, potential cuts or other type of harmful employee actions or actions that are harmful to the employee and their well-being. If there's any opportunity for you to consider any of that, any little bit you say may make a huge difference. I just wanted to put that out there.
Sure, no, I understand. With this money, with this, the CARES Act money, if we don't spend it on December 31st, 2020, we give it back to the Secretary of State, the Secretary of State gives it back to the federal government.
I get
it. It's gone. So, you know, one of the things I want to do is spend as much of this locally as we possibly can to try and get some of those dollars circulating around town. Just because that seems like the right thing to do. So, yeah. But
I
yeah,
just
might as well take it.
I just had to say it.
Sure,
It's
absolutely.
kind of an obvious thing for us that we're dealing with right now. To not say it, I don't think would have been appropriate for me.
So the second, I have less information about the second grant in the federal 2020 budget passed last November, early December. There was $425 million for election improvements generally. That also required a 20% state match. The Secretary of State got about $9 million of that money. The last legislature matched that. We have been told that we will get a grant of a similar amount, presumably slightly more, soon. Don't know what that means. I haven't seen the paperwork on that can't provide much more information. The good news about that is I believe we have 3 years to expend that money. And it doesn't, that money does not need to be directly tied to COVID or anything else. It is broadly for cybersecurity and the improvement of elections. So I will be back when we know more about that for another budget amendment. You know, I want to focus that at least initially on security measures and doing what we can to be responsive to the DHS report on the things we should improve related to elections. And again, I'm happy to talk to you about that in executive session, but don't want to talk about it here. So that's really all I know about that. Again, no local match, that was matched, the state match, the state matched for us. So, and there won't be the time pressure to get that money out the door. So we can be a little more thoughtful and so.
But do you need anything from us on that?
Not yet,
No, okay.
not yet, because I don't know how much it is. I will at some point when we know how much, be back for budget authority to receive it. Both of these grants require that a separate fund be established. We've talked to the treasurer's office about that, and that the interest earned accrue to it, internal to the fund. So, you know, any interest it earns has to be spent as part of the grant. I'm not sure how much interest we will earn on the first grant in 7 months, but the other grant, presumably over a couple of years, will earn a little more. Okay? Do you have what you need, Diane?
$65K for a ballot sorter via Island County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Wash your hands.
If you have a few seconds, I think we're about done. I'd love to talk to you for a second.
Okay. I will just be out here.
Move we adjourn?
Do we have discussion, commissioner discussion, have anything? No?
I have one thing, actually.
Hi, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Shots fired.
No, Commissioner, definitely not. With the reopening, right now we currently have one seasonal parks person who was hired prior to the COVID-19 shutdown and being told, don't hire any more seasonal. That person was brought down to work with maintenance. He's been working side by side with our other person who was hired on for taking on the vehicles for the fleet program. And they've been working on that. With the partial opening of parks, do we move him back up to parks and help them, or do we keep him down here, or would you like him laid off?
I don't think it's possible to do parks without him. If I remember correctly, he's the one that does all the maintenance of stuff up north, right?
He did the Sand Hill.
Yeah.
Is what he did, so.
The amount that it takes to send our other staff up there and stuff wasn't realistic in the past. That's what I remember about it.
How much will the workload change at Sand Hill if we're not having baseball? That would be the only factor I would have in that.
Okay.
Team sports.
Because I'm sure there's still things that would need to be done up there, just if, there's not maybe getting
And if anything, the mowing.
Yeah, one of the employees called me up, was upset that they don't have anybody to do all that up there now, so I know they still have something to do. Whether that lasts, I don't know, because maybe it's something that, how about this, can we have that conversation again in another 2 weeks?
You have briefing next Monday, you can have it with them.
Yeah, let's see what.
I mean, can he float as needed? I don't know that, it feels like it should be a manager's decision as to how best to use the.
Well, the other question was whether to lay him off, because we're not doing
Yeah,
seasonal.
he's seasonal. That's what keeps going back and forth.
Yeah, I agree with you, I think it's
There's
a
plenty
management
of
thing.
work here, there's
but
plenty of
with
work
that
up
season-
there,
I
it's
don't know
whether
that,
we
I
keep
don't know that we're laying
extending that
anybody else
money.
off right now, so I mean, I would just
Yeah.
say use, my opinion would be utilize him however you need it, and then
Okay.
we'll
I agree with that,
continue
that
to
makes
monitor.
sense. We're not, we
Okay.
haven't laid, and we're not. doing
Because we're
that.
talking about hiring freezes, not,
Not layoffs.
which I think
Yeah.
we're in a different position.
Okay, perfect, I'll let Frank know. Thank you.
Just one quick thing before I did think, can we check with Enterprise and just see sort of, I mean,
Whether,
it was interesting to hear Richard's, talking about the delays that Mason County Garbage has had and everything. Can you maybe poke around at Enterprise and see where we're at with our orders?
I know I got 3 coming in right away.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go pick them up right away.
from our complaining.
So I got that today from Jason, said he's got 3 cars ready to roll, I need to get gas started for him, so.
Sheriffs or just?
Sheriffs,
Yes,
yes.
yeah.
good.
Patrol even.
But
Yes,
I
control.
would just, if, maybe you guys
I think
it would
even
just
up
be
there,
helpful to
I
get an
think they're
update.
ready.
with-
Yeah,
Yeah, it would.
well, and sometimes it's best to just keep moving them anyway, so,
Yes.
please, yeah.
And we did sit down and had a meeting, and they are ordered, they're rolling, it's coming back slowly, just like everything else is coming back on the, we picked the worst time in the world. This
For a lot of
thing's
things.
coming,
Only
so-
we've known.
Yeah,
We're not
Yes,
saying
it's
it's not
moving.
well timed.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
yeah.
Madam Chair, move we adjourn.
Second?
Okay.